All right, this is a short little talk on the microphones that I use on a regular basis. I'm going to start with my go-to microphone, which is called a Rode Broadcaster. You see that I have it mounted on a boom arm. Normally, this is mounted on my desk on a permanent basis. I'm just in the living room today because I've got more space to work with. I've got this nice table to work on. I'm recording currently through a Zoom H6. Last semester, I would have talked about using the Blue Yeti. I sold that recently, so I don't have that to show you. That's a USB microphone that hooks directly to the computer. I'll just say this up front. The Blue Yeti is probably a better microphone for the beginning screencaster. You can get it on Amazon for a fairly decent price. Like I said, I talked about that last semester. I used it quite a bit. I don't have it anymore. I upgraded to the Rode Broadcaster. This is a much more expensive microphone. Now, in addition to having it on a boom arm, I also have a shock mount and a pop filter. This is called a pop filter. Now, the Rode Broadcaster, they'll advertise this microphone as being one that you can get away with not using a pop filter and not using a shock mount. I find that to be balderdash. I've tried this without a pop filter. You still get plosives. Plosives are those P kind of sounds that you don't like to hear in people's recordings. And the other thing, too, is I try to keep this off axis a little bit. So notice that it's kind of tilted, so I'm talking to the side of it. It's also known as an end address microphone, meaning that I'm talking to the end of the microphone and not to the side of it. I like it because my computer screen's off to the side here, and I can see what I'm doing, and the microphone's out of the way, so I can have freedom of pen movements and mouse movements, so I can do that thing. So like I said, this is my go-to microphone. One last thing about it. Before I switch to another microphone, it's a condenser microphone. That's why you got to be careful with these things. They're designed to be studio microphones for the most part, not really for live performances like this one right here that I'll get to eventually. Now, I'm recording on the H6 Zoom, which is just recording to a SanDisk card, and I've got pretty good audio settings on this. I'm going to probably post this audio file to my website so you can get a sample of this. You really need to listen to the audio quality through headphones. Playing it through speakers just doesn't do it justice. Remember, you got to have good audio quality to have students actually listen to the whole thing. A lot of people actually listen to recordings at kind of double speed too, so you really got to make sure that you have good audio for that kind of thing. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to switch back and forth between the inputs, so I turned down all the inputs here, and that's what I'm going to do for this microphone that I'm currently talking into. I'm going to turn down the sound, so give me a couple seconds while I switch to the next microphone, and I'm going to switch around here. It'll just be a little bit of a pause. I apologize. All right, so here we go. I'm going to turn this one down, and I'm going to switch to this one, and I'm going to watch the input level, make sure it's not going to sound terrible on me. And this is a Rode microphone too. This is a kind of a legend. They use this one a lot in the studio for singers. And notice that it's also got a pop filter in front of it, a shock mount. I don't use this one too much, I admit, for screencasting. I mostly use this for instrument recordings. And I did a little happy birthday song to my mom not too long ago. I used this microphone. It's a little bit easier to move around than this one, which is permanently mounted. But it's a good microphone. It's called a side address. So notice that I'm talking to the side of it. There's a little gold dot on the front of this. You can't see it, but you got to make sure that that gold dot's facing you. But I'm still talking through the pop filter. It's still on a shock mount. I don't use this one as often as I use the Broadcaster. Okay, so I'm going to turn down the sound on this. I'm going to switch to my lavalier microphone. As I turn up the sound on the lavalier microphone, I've got this clipped to my chest, so I'm going to kind of shift over here. And the lavalier microphone is great for doing videos in the laboratory. I don't use it at home to do screencasting because the sound quality is not nearly as good as this one. But for moving around the laboratory when I'm doing teaching demonstration, or not teaching demonstrations, like laboratory demonstrations, I use this one. The downside is that I'm tethered to the camera. It's an XLR wired microphone, so I've got a really long cable, but it's kind of restrictive sometimes. So when I'm really desperate, I'll hook this recorder up to my belt and kind of tuck it out of sight, and that way I can walk around. The big hassle though is I got to remember to hit the record button on the Zoom before I start walking around, but not a big deal. So again, this is the lavalier microphone. It's clipped to my shirt. This is called the Sanken COS 11D. It's a really nice microphone. It's a condenser microphone. Got to be careful with it. I try not to bang it around when I'm transporting it. All right, so I'm going to switch away from this lavalier microphone and switch to the next type. A shotgun microphone. I'm going to turn up the sound, sound check. There we go. It's starting to come online here. Looks like I'm not going to be clipping out here. Okay, I think we're good. So that's the microphone that you can probably just see up top here. Normally that's out of view of the camera, obviously. Hollywood loves these types of microphones. Normally there's a guy that's walking around following actors and trailing them with a boom arm with one of these mounted on it just out of the camera's view. Hollywood likes this type because it keeps lavaliers off the actors. They don't want to walk around with lavalier microphones, obviously. And so these are the next best choice. Normally they're aimed at somebody's chest. That's the ideal placement. It also is a condenser microphone. I've also got it in a shock mount so it doesn't jostle around too much. The next best positioning is actually from the floor upwards, but that's kind of the ideal spot. But again, it's usually further back. You'll probably notice an echo eventually from this microphone. That's what I kind of don't like about this, and I don't use it very often. It's kind of a pain to set up. I much prefer the flexibility of a lavalier microphone. That's quick and easy to set up. This one's kind of a pain. I gotta mount it. I gotta put it on a microphone stand. Kind of a pain. All right, so I'm gonna turn that one down and switch to the last type, which is a microphone that is a dynamic microphone. All these ones that I've demonstrated so far are condenser types. Okay, so I'm switching on the last microphone, which is a dynamic microphone. This one I never ever use for screencasting, but I just wanted to demonstrate the sound quality nonetheless. I'm turning up the input slowly here so it's not really blowing out the signal. Okay, so this type of microphone is used exclusively for live performances. The way I use it only is to put a microphone in front of my guitars. So it's kind of built to be tough and sturdy. That's why it's used for live performances. It can get banged around. I can crash it and stuff. I don't have to worry about it. It doesn't need any so-called phantom power. It doesn't have to have a battery. In other words, all these other microphones have to have phantom power. The good news is this Zoom recorder actually has phantom power capability, so that's not a problem. But anyways, yeah, I just use this one for really loud situations where I don't care about the microphone banging around. So now, lastly, I'm going to switch back to my Rode Broadcaster so you can get another sense of what that sounds like compared to the rest of them. Switch back to my favorite microphone, the one that I use most of the time. Okay, so I'm switching back to the Rode Broadcaster, turning up the sound slowly. Coming back online here, just want to make sure that it's not clipping. These are all manual input levels that I have to set. Pros don't actually use auto level because it kind of sounds cheesy when you're talking into it. You want a nice, consistent sound level and just kind of have good technique about keeping your lips close to the end of the microphone. Maybe I talked about this earlier in the video, but you want to have your mouth as close as possible, and it kind of takes a while to get used to that. In fact, my lips, for the most part, are touching the pop filter. That's how I know to keep a consistent distance from the end of this microphone. And keep in mind, too, the closer you get to this microphone, the better the proximity effect. That's the kind of that deep sound that people like when they hear recording. So it's a deeper, richer sound. And the closer you get, the better off you are. I talked about the pop filter already. That's essential when you get this close. Try to talk off angle. So my computer screen's actually off that way, and I'm talking off axis a little bit. And the other advantage of a pop filter is when you're constantly kind of spitting into the microphone, let's be honest about it, it's really going to break down that microphone quicker. This is an expensive microphone. I like to take care of it, so I'm always going to use a pop filter in front of it. The shock mount I find to be less necessary, but hey, it looks cool. In fact, this kind of, I think this came with it. I had to do some, no, it didn't come with it actually. I think it came with this one, and then I bought an extra one, and I had to modify it slightly. So if you're interested in something like this, I can tell you how I modified it to work with this microphone. It took a little bit of finagling, but yeah, this is my go-to microphone, boom stand, shock mount, and pop filter. You got to have good audio for people to watch your videos. So it's not just video, it's good audio too. If you're going to do this on a regular basis, I recommend that you get some good stuff early on and mount it on a permanent, like a permanent mount, so it's easy to finagle this when you're ready to do recordings. Okay, so that's all my microphones. So that was just a quick demonstration. Like I said, I'm going to post this sound file online so you can listen to this through headphones. Really playing it through a speaker is not going to do it justice.